Hello everyone and welcome to the fourth episode of the Nona Sports Show. I am your host and producer, Edgar Rodriguez. Pleased to have your company as always. So, what are the topics for today's episode? First, it is halfway through the Champions League group phase, so we'll be giving a bit of a recap, as well as looking forward to the upcoming international break. Next, we'll talk about UCF playoffs. How are they looking heading into their postseason? We'll talk MLS, of course, Game 3 of the first round coming up, and some big NWSL news as well. And then we'll wrap things up, as always, with Nona news, as well as some FC recognition. So, without further ado, let's introduce who I have alongside me. He's the same one as the last two episodes. It's, of course, Patrick De Leon. Patrick, how are we doing?
I'm good. I'm super excited to get this underway and talk even more soccer.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll start things off with the Champions League, of course, like I said.
Yeah.
4 games out of the 8 played already in the group phase. We've been treated to a lot of drama, a lot of action. I think we can already look at the table, see some trends. So who has impressed you the most?
So I'm going to go off with Sporting Lisbon.
Okay.
That's who I'm going to start off with.
Yeah.
Most notably, their main man up top,
Number 9.
Victor Gyökeres.
Let's go with
that. I can't get it right. But 5 goals, 1 assist in 4 games so far. A hat trick most recently against Manchester City.
Unbelievable.
Pep Guardiola's Manchester City.
Unbelievable.
At home in Lisbon. How crazy is that? I mean, that's just a result. That's their biggest win so far, in this Champions League campaign.
By far.
So 3 wins, 1 draw so far for them halfway through. 4-1, a 4-1 beating against Manchester City. What do you take from that, Edgar? Because, I mean, that's just a stellar performance all around.
You don't see that every day, let alone every season. City usually do not lose 4-1. Unbelievable. And I think for Gyökeres, on a personal standpoint, lots of people saying, oh, he can't do it against the Europe's elite.
He did it against Manchester City.
He just put that completely to bed.
Yeah.
And I think his transfer value is just growing. I think he'll get a big move in the summer.
Oh, for sure.
People are talking about
Portugal
January. I think that's too soon. I think we'll see the season out with Sporting.
Yeah.
But in the summer, he is going to be one of the hottest properties in European football. Victor Gyökeres. We'll see where he heads. Barcelona, Manchester United, of course. Will he follow Amorim to Manchester United?
Nona FC?
Nona FC, hope potentially USL2, Gyökeres, if you want to stay fit over the summer. Not like they already have enough games already. But yeah, I mean, Victor Gyökeres, unbelievable.
He's just tearing it up. And again, credit to every other player on the team just as well. Again, it's a team game, and they're all just on stellar form in their Champions League, and this is where they want to be. They're winning the games that they should win. I say that, like, Manchester City, hopefully they will probably, I guess everybody, like, as a viewer, you're expecting for Lisbon to maybe get a draw at their best. But no. 4-1, there's nothing else I need to say about them. They're just killing it.
The result speaks for itself. I did briefly mention Ruben Amorim, the new Manchester United manager. That move will be sealed after the international break. Yeah. I mean, Manchester United fans will be loving seeing this.
Absolutely, because they see what's going on over in Portugal for them. Now, what do the players from playing for Sporting Lisbon, what do they expect? Or what's going to change? I don't expect too much to change from that. I think they're going to keep playing their game just as they are. The new coach, whoever it is that comes in, probably going to keep the same or relatively the same strategies, whatever suits the or tailors the players the best. I don't expect too much. I think they'll just be fine without him.
Sounds good. Well, we'll see. Eventually, time will tell. Yeah. I'll move on to, I think, the team that really jumps out at you the most. When you look at the Champions League table right now, it's Stade Brestois. They sit 11th in Ligue 1. Nothing special there. But they're 4th in the Champions League. I mean, they have 3 wins and a draw, just like Sporting, just like Monaco, Inter. Some of these big teams, yes, okay, they've played the likes of Sturm Graz, teams closer to the bottom of the table, but they got a draw against Leverkusen. I mean, still, again, very early, but it jumps out at you.
Right, and I mean, you look at their upcoming games. Barcelona, next.
It'll get tough.
PSV Eindhoven, next.
Right.
Shakhtar Donetsk, next. And then finally, Real Madrid.
Wow.
So, they have a hard schedule coming up.
They got to prove themselves.
This is why it's so important that they've won the games they've won now, because those points are valuable. They need a cushion heading into this second half of this league group phase, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So, I mean, Barcelona, Real Madrid, those are the 2 big teams that they're going to have to face. And if they can grab even a point from them, who knows what happens. But this is why it's so important to win the games you need to win. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. As long as you win and get what you need from those games and you have that cushion to sit on, they're in a perfect position for it.
Especially in the new format, too.
Yes.
Now you see Barcelona like that once. You don't have to play them twice.
Right.
You don't take more points off of each other. Brest already have enough points to probably get at least a playoff spot in the Champions League. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's the first time they've played Champions League. Yes, it's going to get tougher. They already drew against Leverkusen, though. Who's to say they won't surprise one of those big names?
And so they do play Real Madrid at home, in France. So they'll look to maybe get a nice home win. And that leads to my next point.
Yeah.
Who are the teams that have been kind of disappointing us so far in this Champions League campaign? And for me, it's going to be Real Madrid.
Wow.
I mean, you just saw they lost 3-1. We previewed this on the last episode.
Yes, we did.
They just lost 3-1 to AC Milan at home in the Bernabeu. And I said I'm expecting a big performance from Christian Pulisic, and he delivered, on that first goal, beautiful assist. And then the rest of the team, Yunus Musa kind of locked up Vinny on the wing, and he was playing out of position as a right wing back, and he's usually, you don't see Yunus Musa there typically. AC Milan kind of slapped Real Madrid in the face there.
I think so,
And Real Madrid, this is a team, again, like I've said this before on different occasions, they're synonymous with Champions League football. So if they're 2 wins, 2 losses, bottom half-ish of the table.
Unacceptable.
Mid-table, really. It's... The sirens are going off kind of thing. Like, what's going on? You look at the situation with Kylian Mbappe. He wants to play out on the left. He's not really made to be that central striker that Real Madrid wants him to be. But it's also like, who do you move around, right? Like, you have Vinicius already there,
Or, which they won't do this, drop Mbappe. They won't do it.
Right, but it's like you bought him for a reason. Right. They're gonna want to build around Mbappe. But it's just, excuse me. It's just interesting times at Real Madrid. It kind of feels like we've seen this before. Because if you remember the year after Cristiano Ronaldo left, how awful they were in Champions League play. Obviously, not necessarily the same situation, but it's something to keep note of. They've been in this position before. They don't know what to do with their players. Yeah,
and especially you build a team of Galacticos. You build, on paper, an unbeatable team. It's a completely different story on the field. They have to mesh together, and recently they're hitting a bit of a slump. And for Real Madrid, if you don't win 99% of your matches, I feel like at Real Madrid, it's a crisis already.
Yes, absolutely.
But for the disappointing teams now, of course, you spoke on Real Madrid. How about RB Leipzig? They sit in the elimination 32nd position at the moment. They've lost all 4 of their games for a team that's second in the Bundesliga, just behind Bayern. Of course, Bayern are running away with it, as you would expect.
Right.
The Champions League Leipzig have been useless.
Yeah, and you've seen them have pretty decent campaigns in the past, so it's not like this is a new thing to them at all. But it's just like, you would expect more from them. Because you've seen them make quarterfinal runs, semifinal on occasion. Usually, they always make it to the next round. Yeah. But right now, it's looking likely they might not even get out of this first stage of the Champions League.
They might not. They have had a difficult start. You can't underestimate that. Liverpool at home. Liverpool are in incredible form. Away at Celtic.
Celtic's a hard place.
It's tough. Atletico Madrid, Juventus. So they are big names. They are teams with European pedigree.
But they should be competing. I think so. They shouldn't be losing as badly as they have been.
Right. Yeah. So 0-4 for Leipzig. Not good news. But that's the Champions League taken care of. How about international break? I feel like we're getting these every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's a lot. But you got to live with them.
Yeah. There's always so much action going on. So for me, what I personally want to really talk about, we're going to look at the Asian qualifiers. Yeah. I don't feel like anybody really pays attention to them. And I do. So, for example, Uzbekistan. They're my biggest surprise. I think they're a lot of people's biggest surprise because right now, third round in the Group A. So, qualifying for Asia, it's a bit of a wonky format just because there's so many countries. So right now they're in the third round. 3 groups of 6 teams. Top 2 for each group automatically qualify for the World Cup. the third and fourth place for these three groups go to the next round.
Okay.
So Uzbekistan are sitting at second place in Group A with 10 points, 3 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses.
Interesting.
Uzbekistan, a smaller nation that we never really hear of in terms of international soccer, they're looking to lock up their first World Cup appearance. And it's looking really likely. Iran is the only team ahead of him. Of course, Iran, powerhouse in Asian football.
Usually,
yeah.
Right.
South Korea, nothing new there. 3 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses.
Also one of the.
They're South Korean
you
powerhouse.
locked them in.
They're going through. So then we look at Group C. We have got Japan, Australia, Saudi Arabia, 3 of the really big teams in Asia.
All in one group.
Yeah. Japan doing really good. They play Indonesia next. Shouldn't be a problem. Australia, all the way down to China. There's only a 2-point gap. So second place for the rest of the qualifying window for them. This group, really every other group, it's all pretty close. But specifically Group C, Australia are sitting at 5 points, China at 6, last in the group at 3. There's a lot of space for movement.
Yeah.
So definitely a group to keep an eye on. Japan, though, they're going to be fine. Australia, they're iffy because I do like my Australian football too.
Right.
But not really. They haven't really been convincing me. Same with Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Teams you'd expect more from. That's what I've got.
Yeah,
what about you, Edgar?
That's interesting. Yeah, no, we usually don't touch on Asian football, so that is very interesting to keep an eye on. I'm going to talk about the CONMEBOL World Cup
always
qualifiers.
Chaotic. It's always fun to check
chaotic. You got a big 10-country group, essentially.
Yeah.
We've seen the likes of Venezuela, who were on a high after the Copa America in the summer. They've hit a dip of form. They now sit 8th outside of the qualifier positions. You have Colombia, who were in a 20-plus match unbeaten run, finally came to an end. They sit second just behind Argentina.
Even look at Brazil, who are doing pretty poorly. Now they've seemed to regain some form,
Picking
some more
up a bit of
momentum.
steam. Right.
Yeah, you see them sitting at 4th in the CONMEBOL standing. So there's always movement,
Always.
It's just so chaotic. The kinds of games. It's just that's what you want to see in soccer. I feel like that's like peak.
Pure football.
It's just chaos.
Anyone can beat anyone.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're Bolivia playing Brazil. You never know what's going to happen.
Right.
Also, turning our attention to Europe, some big games to take a note of. Belgium, Italy on the 14th. That's always big. Denmark, Spain. Denmark, always, at home especially.
Yeah.
Spain, who have been incredible, especially after their Euros win. Can they keep it up? Italy, France. Italy are going to be involved in big games in Europe. And then how about Pochettino with the U.S.? Of course, they have Jamaica home and away in the Nations League. What have you made of him so far? Of course, lost away at Mexico.
Right. So far, he's had his taste in friendly fixtures.
Right.
Whatever. Now that we're getting into more official competitive matches, yes, it's Jamaica, but sometimes
tricky.
The thing is, the U.S. hasn't exactly been known to play good soccer outside of the U.S.
Very true.
So this is gonna be our first, aside from the Mexico game, this is gonna be our first real game in a competitive setting where we can see how they do away from home. So they're going to be playing in Kingston, first leg of the series. We're going to see who he calls in over the weekend. There's been a lot of rumors from a lot of maybe new faces we see come into this lineup too. One potentially being Henri Chase, who was supposed to be called up with the Japan national team. He's doing phenomenal at Stuttgart.
Wow. So
the fact that we didn't see him with the Japan roster release yesterday, a lot of signals are saying that he's already been in contact with the U.S. camp. So it's just a matter of seeing if we actually secure him for this upcoming. So we'll see over the weekend. Nothing's official yet, but you may have heard it here first.
You did hear it here first. I would not be surprised. That is very intriguing to see how Pochettino takes his new team, of course, moving from club football to international football.
It's a different setting.
It's a whole different ball game. But that is all the time we have for the first segment. That was very exciting to look back at the Champions League international break. We got to take it for what it is and look forward to it. But next, we will be coming back across the pond to talk UCF, MLS, and NWSL. Stay tuned.
Turn your pool into paradise with Migaloo Pool Services. At Migaloo Pool Services, we know that your pool is much more than just a recreational space. Strategically situated to serve Lake Nona, St. Cloud, Kissimmee, and Orlando areas, we specialize in pool cleaning, equipment repairs, and pool remodeling, ensuring that your pool is always spotless and functional. We are proud to serve all Nona Soccer Academy customers with personalized discounts and services that adapt to their needs and schedules. Don't leave your pool on the back burner and get with Migaloo Pool Services today, so you can transform your pool into a true paradise. With Migaloo Pool Services, every dive will be an amazing experience.
All right, we are back, and now we are back to talk UCF soccer. Of course, the boys made it into the playoffs of the Sun Belt Conference. They have been paired with a matchup against James Madison at James Madison, which is the main thing to emphasize. Of course, Patrick, we saw them lose there 2-0 in the regular season, but what have you made of the Knights overall?
So, if we look back earlier on the season, it looked pretty disappointing. It was shaping up to be a fairly disappointing season. I mean, you look at all the injuries that happened. It was really bad, especially the drop off from being, the number one team last season at one point in the nation to now. And then finally they did end off on a pretty good run of form. Which is what we're hoping to see, especially with the turn of guys like Luca Dorado, who scored a hat trick on the senior night game.
Incredible.
In a 4-0 victory. That's what you want to see, especially hitting into this final stretch of the season. We're gonna, in the postseason, the Sun Belt Championship playoffs. Hopefully, they can do better than last year.
Right.
Actually, go farther. But that's something we're gonna have to see, and how Coach Calabrese, how he adapts and to not repeat the same mistakes as before.
Yeah, last season we saw, like you said, reach the heights of number one in the nation, the first time a UCF program
athletics,
ever basketball, football, soccer, baseball, anything. So yeah, reaching those heights, coming back down to earth, I think you can say, but still ended up with a good run of form at home. I think the schedule favored them at the end, and especially senior night. I mean, 4-0, Luca getting up to 42 goals. He scored his 43rd away at Coastal Carolina, which was their only away win of the regular season. That's a bit of an iffy point that I've noticed.
Right.
What do you think? It's away at James Madison again for the postseason. Will that hurt them?
So, again, away form, it's a big deal. You can have good home form, but you could have really bad away form, or vice versa, reverse the roles. Their away form hasn't really been looking great, so they're going to have to be a little bit wary in this matchup. So that's as much depth we can go into right now, because
pretty much James Madison, they on the face of it, UCF ended up with a better record than James Madison. They had an overall more solid season. And look, you can have a bad away form, but end of the day, you have a goal scorer like Luca Dorado you can count on.
Yeah, you can count on that.
It's a pretty good safety cushion to fall back on.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much all we know about for UCF. Of course, the game has not happened at the time of recording this episode, so we will be able to look back at it, see if the Knights continue on their playoff run on the next edition. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. Something also that is coming up is the Game 3 of the MLS first round of the playoffs. Orlando City, of course, going to Charlotte, couldn't come up with the win. It was it was an interesting match. Charlotte dominated the run of play for a lot of it. Orlando City getting that late equalizer. How did you see it unravel?
Well, Orlando City, they scored near the end of the game to win it, so to just keep it at 2 games. But unfortunately, it was ruled offside. Tight call, could have gone either way. But Christian Kalina, the Charlotte FC's goalkeeper, he had a great game. Despite losing 2-0 in the first game, he still had some really good saves. He showed out for the penalty shootout.
Huge.
Charlotte, I mean, they completely stepped on us in the penalties. And penalties are usually something that Orlando City are really good at. But now they've been losing them recently. Like, for the longest time, we had gone unbeaten in like 10 or so penalty shootouts. Now, we're starting to kind of fall apart there. So Christian Kalina did a stellar job at stopping. His saves were just phenomenal. So now we return back here in Orlando. Game 3. What am I expecting of this?
Yeah.
It's going to be a tight affair, I think. It's going to be a really hard, cagey match, because this also sets up a potential game for either Charlotte or Orlando against Atlanta or Miami. We'll also see how they do because those two matchups go hand in hand, you know.
Absolutely.
But Orlando, they're going to be looking to hopefully just dominate this game at home. It's honestly now I'm kind of in doubt, unfortunately, and because Charlotte had been playing pretty decently, but now it's just like they got to get the job done here at home. Again, it sets up the
high pressure.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And because you don't want to take it to a third game, you want to rest your guys. It's just more exhaustion than you need. You know, not just for them, but for any team. Really, you never want to take it to another game than you need to.
Absolutely,
you want to finish it as early as you can. So now, how Orlando City is going to be looking at this. You know, they win against Charlotte, potentially. Let's say they win. They're going to be looking at Atlanta, Miami. Atlanta, Miami tied. They're going to also go to a game 3.
Yep.
Atlanta is also going to have to go down to Fort Lauderdale. And if they get a result, if Atlanta gets a result, Orlando City will host Atlanta United. Again, so another home playoff game will be here. But if Miami wins and Orlando City wins, they'll have to travel down to Fort Lauderdale. So they're in a position where not only does it depend on themselves, but also depends on the things, you know, a viable, an easier path to the final is what they're hoping for. Because you look at Columbus Crew, the reigning champs, they got knocked out first round against New York Red Bulls in 2 games.
Really?
So a massive result for other teams on this side of the bracket, because that's one of the other teams, aside from Miami, that you were looking at that you don't want to play.
No.
And now that they're out, they're gone. The path to the final is looking so much easier. You just have to get the job done, kind of thing. You know, I get it. Like, you don't want to depend on the results of other teams, which I agree with. You never want to. You just play your game,
but it's shaping out to be that way.
But it's shaping out to be like, look, all these other results are favoring us. You have to do your part. So Orlando City, if they want to make it to the final for the first time in this cup, you know, it would be a huge thing for the greater Orlando area, you know. But again, they got to get one game at a time. They got to get the job done. So hopefully they can do that against Charlotte FC. Duncan Maguire, Mauricio Pochettino, who we touched on earlier, he's going to be at the game. So potentially looking at Duncan Maguire, because Maguire, he's had a couple call-ups before. You know, hopefully, you know, he still has eyes on him to potentially move to Europe. We'll see how that pans out, you know, in the next year or two. You know, too early to say. But Pochettino, he's going to be at the playoff game. We're going to see who's going to be looking at, potentially looking at Tim Ream as well, see how he's doing, even though I think Tim Ream should be phased out of the U.S. Like, nothing against him, but I think it's time to move on from him. But there's big eyes on this game is the point, that players that are part of the program or have ties to it at least, are going to be wanting to perform and shine, especially in such a critical game. Final game, winner, go home.
100%. And I think, look, any game 3 is going to be important. I know you touched on Miami, Atlanta as well. Both of those games have been 2-1. Jordi Alba scoring a beauty in game 1. Game 2, Atlanta stealing it right at the end. Miami thought they could take it to penalties. It didn't happen. Atlanta forcing a game 3. And look, if you're Orlando City, you're looking at 2 teams that you have a rivalry against. Atlanta, of course, came into the league at a similar time. Miami newer, but of course that Florida rivalry is well and truly alive. So pretty big storylines in the MLS as we head into an incredible weekend, seeing how it all shapes up. Also, Duncan Maguire, we saw Chris Mueller, who was one of the former stars, make that leap to Europe.
Oh, yes.
Do you think it's a bit early for Maguire? Of course, he's scoring his goals in MLS.
Of course. I mean, last year was a phenomenal season. Yeah. He had a great season. I never honestly expected him to pan out the way he did, but you see him. I compare him a little bit to Daryl Dike, former Orlando City striker. Now he's playing for West Brom. Unfortunately, he's been dealing with a lot of injuries.
Right. So in the championship,
his development and his growth, it's stagnating a little bit. So hopefully, Maguire has been relatively healthy, though, for his time here in Orlando. And the form he's in, yes, he can be a little bit more consistent, but the thing is, they also use him, Oscar Pereira uses him a lot as like kind of a super sub almost. Like, he knows what he can do, but he prefers having him come off the bench and then score a goal, which if it works, it works. It's great. But just like you said, if he makes that jump to Europe, depending where it is, I don't want him to go. I'm not asking him to go to a big team.
Right.
I don't think he's warranted that yet.
Somewhere where he can get play time.
A mid-table team, whether it's in Spain or Germany. I think Germany is a great spot. But if you want to go for more development, Netherlands. Look at what Ricardo Pepi, look at Malik Tillman, Serginho Dest. They're playing 3 guys at PSV Eindhoven. I forgot Richie Ledesma. He's been there forever, but I kind of forgot about him. But you have a bunch of guys here in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is a great place to develop as a player. You've seen so many stars come out from Ajax, from all these other teams. Netherlands is a perfect place to develop. And I would like him. I like Maguire to kind of find a system that suits his abilities in one of those smaller countries, the Netherlands, Belgium.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I say that he should still stick around in Orlando for another year or two, because he's not young, but he's still young enough.
Still has a way to go.
He still has a year or two max until he hits that part where it's like, okay, he has to make that big jump now. It's kind of like an hour and everything. Right. But I'm not a coach, so I could be getting that completely wrong.
Well, Duncan, take some notes because we have your future all planned out for you. But to finish off this segment, Patrick, we have huge news going on locally for NWSL. Of course, Orlando Pride back in the playoffs. They have their first ever home match in the NWSL playoffs against the Chicago Red Stars. They are the lowest seed. Orlando had won the Shield.
Season, yes.
Unbelievable season. Yes, they had a few losses at the end once they already clinched it. Yeah. But let's face it, that is not the story of the season.
It's shaped up to be the best women's soccer season in NWSL.
They've broken so many records.
They've broken so many records.
Unbelievable.
We've talked about this on previous discussions, but they're heading into this match. At the time of recording, it's going to be November 8th that they play against Chicago in downtown Orlando. So it's their first ever playoff match. It's a new environment.
Huge. Yeah.
It's a different kind of stress, But again, they've done such applaudable things during the season. They've had such a great season that I feel like regardless of the result, we'll touch back on this next episode. But regardless of the result, we'll be happy to see that the game has grown, that the team has gotten so much better. Credit to Seb Hines, former Orlando City player also.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll check back on them and just see how it goes.
Absolutely. So much happening locally in the professional level. So that is all the time we have, though, for segment 2. We're going to finish off talking even more locally. What are the Nona boys and girls up to this weekend, as well as some of our Nona FC stars from last summer getting some SoCon recognition.
Something new, something fresh, yeah, I'm super obsessed. Let me know when you done messing. A little that, a little this, then you put it to the test. It's all in the expression. It's a mood, it's a vibe, it's a state of mind. And now I want it more. It's a mood, it's a vibe, it's a state of mind. Okay, you got the floor, it's looking good. I kinda like that.
Alright, so it's just me for the third segment. Thank you, Patrick, for joining me on the last 2. But now for the third, as always, we're going to talk about what is going on with the Nona Soccer Academy boys and girls. So this weekend, we had Tampa Super Cup action. Last weekend, of course, we had most of our groups at the Elite 64 tournament in Arizona. Now we have all the older age groups as well heading down to the Tampa Bay region to have their competition. So it's going to be interesting to see how they get on. As well, we have EDP action. So for the next episode, we will be recapping all of those incredible games and the results. Hopefully Nona wins from those tournaments. So moving on from the soccer academy, we had a few of our NONA FC 2024 boys get recognition in the Southern Conference of men's soccer. Of course, we have an incredible talent pool that we had for 2024. We had, of course, Ivan Slade and Christian Kraus, who played, of course, from Furman for USL2 and NONA FC. And, of course, Gabby Ramos at ETSU. They all had fantastic seasons, and all four of them got named to the first team of the Southern Conference, an unbelievable achievement from them. Let's just run through some of the stats. Of course, the three guys from Furman, you can really say that they have been the bedrock of their success. Furman had an incredible season. Christian Kraus, 5 goals, 3 assists in 14 games played. Unbelievable. We saw his goal-scoring prowess in the summer. That, of course, set him up for an incredible season that he had. How about Ivan Ajakwa? Of course, we were able to speak with him exclusively on the Nona Sports Show. 4 goals, 3 assists, also playing and appearing in every single match for Furman. Just unbelievable. I mean, that you take those boys out of that Furman team, we would not be talking about them in the same light that we are now. And then Slade Starnes, he played in 11 of the 14 matches, 1 goal, 4 assists from the center back position, from a defensive position. That is something to also take note of. The Paladins, of course, now moving into their playoff match against Mercer, who they finished off the season playing. Now they will have them in the playoffs. That'll be very interesting in the Southern Conference, keep a look at, keep updated with our Nona FC boys. Of course, that is very important for us to keep, updated with how they're doing at their universities. Of course, that is something we are also working on in USL2 preview, so stay tuned for that. How about moving to Eastern Tennessee State? Of course, Gabby Ramos ripping it up. And I mean, we talk about offensive production. 15 games for Gabby Ramos. He appeared in all of them. 6 goals, 7 assists, scoring free kicks, scoring all different types of goals. Gabby Ramos has been the main man for Eastern Tennessee and will continue to do so as they head into the playoffs of the Southern Conference. Who knows, maybe a Furman ETSU battle like we saw in the regular season. In the playoffs, all the pressure would be on them if they do meet. That is something, just another thing to keep an eye on. Of course, for our Nona FC boys, Gabby Ramos has played at Nona for the last few seasons. For the likes of Ivan, Slade, and Christian, it was their first taste for USL2. So it looks like it really was worth it. All of that experience, all that game time in the summer, really crucial to what ended up being fantastic seasons for those Furman and ETSU boys. But having recapped that, that's about all of the time we have for this, which was the 4th episode of the Nona Sports Show. We've tried some new formats. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We keep improving here on the Nona Sportscast and the Nona Sports Show. Don't forget, Nona Cup is quickly approaching, just around 2 weeks to go until the tournament kicks off here locally in Lake Nona. We're going to have wraparound coverage. We're just finalizing how we're going to cover the tournament, so stay tuned for that. So many good things coming from our side, but from the Nona Soccer Academy family, it's take care and see you soon for the next edition.